Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where our mission is to motivate, inspire, and challenge you to never quit. Life will test you, you will fall, fail, and get knocked down. But what defines you is how you respond. Will you stay down, or will you rise stronger, smarter, and more determined to become your best? Thank you for being a part of Team No Quit. Welcome to episode number 638 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme is Be Better, Be Different. Our quote of the day comes to us from Jerry Rice. Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. 2026 is officially here, and if you are looking for different results this year, then perhaps it's time you looked into using a different planner this year. The Clear Planner is just that planner. Think planner, journal, calendar, and both a goal and habit tracker all in one. You can take a look by heading on over to theclearplanner.com. I don't think you will be disappointed. I'm very excited for today's episode. I've been a fan of Phil Beckner for quite some time, and I think he is a perfect first guest for 2026. I know you will appreciate what he has to share with us, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Phil, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
I'm pumped to be here, pumped to be a follower of yours, the message, everything you're trying to preach and instill. So I don't know how long we're going to go here, but I'm super, super excited.
I appreciate that. Talking offline, I think we probably could go for about 4, 5, 6 hours, but we try to keep these 30 minutes or less just because I think people's attention span, I know at least mine. The first question I ask each guest is for their no-quit story. And by that, I mean a challenging time that could either be personally or professionally where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Yeah, I think just looking back now, and I turn 43 next month, so I feel like I'm getting older. You know, it's like the hourglass keeps going faster and faster, as everyone says. But growing up, I think my no quit story just kind of has a lot to do with my families. My mom was a single mom, and seeing her back, you know, during those times not quit. She worked as a waitress at a truck stop, cashier at a gas station. You know, I remember her riding a bike to work at times. Just seeing those things and kind of having that instilled in me to where the coolest kind of basketball part of it. I loved hoop. I got to play a little bit in 7th grade, but then 8th grade, I was a straight bench warmer. And I just remember coming home every day, sometimes in tears, sometimes almost felt bullied or picked on. And, looking at my mom, looking at what we had to overcome and how we were raised, I just said, like, hey, I'm never going to sit there at the end of the bench and be staring at my shoes again, like when the buzzer sounds. And then from there is really where my not too illustrious, but where my own basketball career kind of really took off and, got to become a little bit of a player.
I love those lessons. And obviously, when we're in 7th and 8th grade, we know what's going around us, but we have no idea 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, the impact it's going to have on us. And I appreciate you sharing that backstory with us. Wanted to tee up the first question. If in your words, and I think my audience knows that I hate to read people's bios, and you having been a guest on other shows as I have, sometimes you get on the show and it's like someone literally reads what you've done for the last 12 years. And I don't think anybody can tell their story better than the person. So wanted to give you an opportunity just to tell our listeners a little bit about what it is that you actually do, because I think that will open up a really fun conversation.
Absolutely. Chris, I do just like you. You're trying to impact so many people, and change their lives and change their careers. I don't know what title I am anymore. Like, am I a player development coach? Am I a NBA skills coach? Am I a high performance coach or speaker? So just like you, and that's why I have a ton of admiration for you. But I'm just trying to get people better. I think the true definition of a coach is that you could take someone to a place they maybe couldn't get to on their own. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take people from good to great or great to elite. Primarily, I work with basketball players. Primarily, I work with NBA players. But now, working with different companies or college programs or different camps, Dame and I have even done. But really just trying to, fight mediocrity and build some greatness into others.
I love that answer because I think depending on the day myself, I could be working with an individual, I could be working with a college team, I could be actually working with a college coach or staff or in the corporate world as well. And I'm very grateful of what I get to do. And I know a lot of people say that, and I think it's important to say it, but I really and truly mean it. And I've been a follower of your stuff, and we obviously have some friends in common. But I think when you look at the last thing that you said, fighting mediocrity, I think that is such a simple phrase, but we could literally talk about it for hours upon hours. And when we were offline, you said something that I want to repeat because I think it'll be a really good conversation or a part of the conversation. You talked about preparing people to succeed, but the reality is you don't always succeed. And I think the word or the phrase you said, and I want you to say it because I don't think I'm going to say it correctly, but I think you said something along the lines of preparing people to get hit in the face or to get hit or take a punch, something along those lines.
Absolutely. We've worked with high school kids, college kids. Like I said, worked with colleges just like you have. And what we did a while back ago is we tried to identify 5 separators that anyone could use. You could be mom, dad, anyone at home that will separate yourself regardless of talent, resources, or ability. And our last separator, everyone wants these, sugar coated, sunshine, rainbows, optimistic type stuff. And, I give this as a keynote. But Chris, the last separator is you got to be willing to take a punch. And sometimes when I speak, I didn't say this when we were offline, but I love talking about Floyd Mayweather and, looking at him and one of my clients, Damian Lillard loves boxing. He's like obsessed with boxing. And so I dive into it a little bit. But one time I researched like the winning guy of a boxing match, like the guy who wins a boxing match, how many punches does he take? And it was something over like 350 punches, and he still wins. So when you talk about like fighting mediocrity or, trying to help someone go from good to great, and Chris, see, this is where I'm going to get fired up and why I love like the name of your podcast too, like No Quit. Like there's meaning to that. There is freaking substance to that. Like we have to have some no quit in our veins or in our bloods. But the problem is, people are afraid to talk about those things that make you want to quit. Like, oh no, it's just sunshine and rainbows. No, we're going to be faced at a time where we might want to quit or we got to take a punch. And that's so, and I know I'm getting a little long winded, but that's what I always say. Like the championship fighter, the dude took 300, 350 punches sometimes and still came out on top.
I want to follow that up with a question that you just made me think of. And I don't think I've actually shared this on this podcast. I have a keynote and I do some coaching on this, but I know you're familiar with, or at least know of, the former tennis player Roger Federer, who people say is one of, if not, the top 1 or 2 or 3 greatest tennis players of all time. But he gave a speech, and I'm not sure if you saw it. It was, I believe, within the last 2 years. And he talked about, I think his winning percentage in his entire career is either low or mid 80% in the sense of he won all those matches. So he won, I think, over 1,000 matches. So you can do the math in that perspective. But he said something that blew me away. So he said, in those matches that I won, so let's just call it 80%. He said, what do you think the percentage of the points I won? And it was like 51 or 52%. And
wow.
The crazy part is, and I talk about this with teams a lot, is, and I want to tee up a question to get your response to it, is depending upon the sport, people will say there's typically 2 or 3 plays that impact the game. And what I talk about is, and most people nod their head and say, that's typically what happens. But what you and I have no idea is which of those 2 or 3 or 4. So my point about the Roger Federer piece is if you're always giving 100% of whatever you have in the tank, you're going to put yourself in position to win those or to play those points or to have those possessions. But I think when you go back to the Floyd Mayweather piece, you have to take, let's say on average, 300 punches. But then Roger Federer, who, again, one of the greatest of all time, he's at 51 or 52% of the points, but he most likely won the ones that were really important. And I think when you look at sports, that's what happens more often than not. We don't watch these teams or players and they go, 24 for 24 from the field for every game. It's, they have horrible games, they have good games, but then when it's needed, they turn it on.
Absolutely. Chris, that's where I feel like I failed so much as a younger coach, coaching at the high school level, the college level. I spent 10 years at the Division I level, but so much of it was like, what can we do now? What can we get accomplished now? And you end up putting this pressure, this strain. You lose joy of competing, joy of the game. And sometimes, I know this might sound cliche, but joy of the journey. And that's why the people who continue to show up, the Roger Federers, the Floyd Mayweathers, they're able to just show up with a consistent level of resilience and a consistent level of resolve, because they never know what punch they're going to throw that knocks that other person out, or maybe when that other person's going to quit. And I remember hearing this story. Bill Parcells told it all the time about two boxers. A lot of people could look it up on this podcast. But it was a story, I believe, of a guy named Cyclone Hart. And I remember sharing this story with guys in college. And what it does, Chris, I think stories like this, and I'm going to go maybe be a little controversial here, okay? What you're talking about with Federer, what I'm talking about with Mayweather, or even what we're about to talk about with Cyclone Hart, I think that should put an appropriate fear in the athlete, competitor, serial entrepreneur, whatever it may be. An appropriate fear, a healthy fear, not one that consumes you, not one that destroys you, not one that just causes anxiety. And too many of us think life should just be comfortable every day, or things are just going to be easy every day. So as soon as it gets hard, we have, and here's a great one, man. I know I'm all over the place, but this is why I was so fired up. You're going to love this. One of my best friends and teammates in college, old school dude. Dad was like an old school mechanic, I believe, grew up in Roswell, New Mexico. He would work in cattle growing up in the off seasons, and literally had to snip them and clip them, all that bad stuff with cattle. And this is so good. He would tell guys on our team, "You got too much quit in you." He would just say that, "You got too much quit in you." And when someone says it's so powerful. And so underdog fighting Cyclone Hart, they go through this. Bill Parcells tells this story all the time. The guy cracked his rib. The underdog fighter got his rib cracked, but he kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And he was just waiting for Cyclone Hart to take it out of him and crack his rib again or put him out. Cyclone Hart never did. After the match, underdog, winner, sitting there, loser on the other side of the curtain. There's just a curtain in the locker room. And Cyclone Hart, the talented guy, he's in tears. And he heard the guy on the other side of the curtain go, "I was just waiting for him to take me out and keep throwing that one more punch and crack my ribs, but he never did." And it's just amazing how much you might not be Federer, you might not be Mayweather, but if you just stick in the fight and you keep battling and you always have a level of resolve and resilience that you have no idea, like you were talking about, that one point in the match or that one punch that was thrown that will get you over the hump. And you could probably hear it in my voice, I live for that crap. I love working with the runaways, the rejects, the renegades, those type of dudes, trying to catch those great ones who are eventually going to give in someday.
I appreciate you sharing that. And back to your point, I think stories and being a speaker myself, and obviously as you are as well, I love listening and watching other speakers. And I think the best speakers are the ones that are able to share those stories and share it to the point where the audience really feels it, listens to it. You talk about your teammate in college. I have to just share a very quick story. In college, one of our good friends, we'd all hang out together. His roommate I went to college in Maryland, lived and worked on his family's farm. And this kid would leave Friday afternoon, 2 or 3 o'clock after class got out, and he'd drive home, have dinner with his family. He'd get up before the sun was up on Saturday. He'd work nonstop until dark. Then he'd get up Sunday morning before the sun, work nonstop, and he'd drive home back to campus. And he would always get to campus at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night on Sunday. And he would just literally pass out and get up and go to class. And I just remember, and this is 20 plus years later, that had such a profound impact on me and our friends. And his dad was saying to this kid, he said, I don't want you to have to go through this life. So I want you to get a college degree, but you need to help me pay for that college degree. And the kid never once complained. He didn't go out to a single party on Friday night, Saturday night. And it's so powerful when you are able to tell those stories, because it's what you can leave to other people. And you and I might really connect on something, but another story you tell might just hit somebody in the audience like, wow, like that's the one differentiating factor. And I think that's the cool part about what you do and what I try to do is we all share different stories and lessons, because everyone's not going to connect with all of them, but there's a person in the audience, there's someone who's going to listen to this podcast or other podcasts you're on, and you're going to say something and they're going to be like, wow, like that story or that image or that, idea just hit me like a ton of bricks.
I agree. Hey, can I put, this is going to be awkward, maybe not awkward, maybe one of the first ones. I want to put you on the spot a little bit. I know it's your podcast, but obviously, like you said, we have some similar, friends and people in this industry. And again, I'm really big into like the English language and definitions and reading and writing and different, like you said, different stories hit people different ways. But also, I think different definitions hit people different ways. Like the person you just talked about, his story of work ethic resonates with how I grew up in a small town. You know what I mean? Like understanding that with farmers and what our family did and different things. But what I think so powerful and why I was so excited about what you do is two simple words: no quit. Like that's just like it resonates. I could feel every time I say it, and I'm not gassing you up, I feel it in my bones. And so obviously I did some research before this podcast, and you did not set me up for this question. You could tell the audience, like I literally just interrupted you, maybe made it awkward. But I want to hear like why and how you came up with that message, or like what, where it came from, and like how you define, because it's changed over the years. And you do, and I'm getting more into the mental performance side like you do. But man, I want to hear like be better, be different is our phrase. I could articulate it, define it, tell you about it. We try to live to it, work to it, but like no quit. How do you define it? How do you guys live to it? Or what are you challenging people with?
That's awesome. And I appreciate that. And before I answer that, I will say to our listeners, you and I 100% did not talk about this. So I think that's pretty cool. For me, the only thing that is different about answering that question is the audience. So if it's a sports, usually we obviously go that route. If it's in a school, if it's with a corporation. But the biggest thing that we talk about all the time, and our company and the name of it actually came from a Norman Vincent Peale quote, which is, "It's always too early to quit." And many, many years ago, I just was looking online, Connecticut, for a license plate, and that quote was literally sitting. I hand wrote it on my wall, and I was going through like vanity plates, and I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool. Let me see if no quit is available." And it was, so I ordered it. I've now had, I think, I don't know how many leases or finances, and I always transfer the plate over. But from the perspective of it, is quitting, in our definition, is when something gets really difficult, when it gets really challenging, you're tired, you don't feel like you can go on. And as you know, the mind gives up first before the body does. And that is something we talk about. And like I said, we go through different variations for the audience. But losing and quitting are not the same thing. Yes. Failing and quitting are not the same thing. Zig Ziglar has a phenomenal quote. Failure is an event, not a person. So in schools, teams, and going back to our conversation about how do we handle, and everybody should be able to take a punch, I think we miss, and I say we, the general population, we look at failure, or excuse me, quitting is if we lose a game, if we lose running for an election, and that's not what failure is. Excuse me, that's not what quitting is. You maybe failed that test, you maybe lost that game, and we take it a next step is what happens after that. Because if you stay down and you say, I don't want to do this anymore, that to me is then you're quitting on yourself, you're quitting on your goal, maybe quitting on your team. And I always get this question when people say, "Oh, do you never quit? Do you never quit ever?" And I say, so if you're running a business and you go into bankruptcy and you lose all your employees, like, yes, you get to a point where I'm not saying you don't ever quit no matter what. But then I take it to the next step is if you take a business and you try everything you do and you just can't do it, and you lose your employees and you have to sell your, it's, to me, that's not quitting, and it doesn't mean you're happy with it. It means you gave it everything you could, but you just didn't win. And John Wooden talks about success is giving your best effort all the time, and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't mean you win or lose, but when you put your head on the pillow at night, you can say, I did absolutely everything I could today. And to your point back in the beginning, a lot of times it means you don't win, but the difference is you get up the next day. And if you're a sophomore going into your junior season in college, you lost the last game. What do, right? Do you say, I'm going to hang up, like, I don't like this coach, like, I don't like this team? Or do you say, I want to become the best player I can be, and I'm going to work my tail off this offseason so I can become the best?
Chris, you got me fired up with that one, man. Thanks for letting me steal some time during your podcast. But honestly, you make me want to get a license plate that says no quit. I got to check and see if there's one in Arizona, because it's so true, though. And that's why, we talk about preparing athletes. Or like I told you, I'm in Boston here working with my guy who plays for the Celtics. And we, like me, you, him, anybody, like, things are going to get hard. Storms are going to come. We got to decide now what our decisions are going to be when those storms come, not when they come. Because usually, like you said, when they do come, you're tired, you're soft, like, we're all soft as humans. We're all lazy as humans. Like, I don't care if you're the best performance coach in the world, Chris, or if I'm one of the best trainers, like, we all have weaknesses. So we got to prepare before we get there. And that's where I think too, like, I love your message so much, because like, and this isn't gonna be too popular, but man, it exposes the weak. It weeds out the mediocre. Like, no quit. Like, if you're weak, you don't have that in your veins. So it gets me fired up.
Let me ask you a question, and it was going to be a question regardless, but you have shirts, you have obviously what you do, but be better, be different. The first time, I honestly, I think it was a few months ago when I saw one of your posts, and I think you were wearing one of your shirts. But what does that mean to you? Because before you can put it out there, I think I know what it means to me, and probably I've talked about it in very different ways, but I think I probably said a lot of the same things. But I'm curious why you chose those two words, because I know personally before something can mean something for a company or a team, it's got to mean something for you first.
Absolutely. I don't want to sound cliche with this, but it's not just a message. People wear quotes or culture stuff. You put it on the wall and it's a message. We try to say it's more of a mission, and it could be lived individually, and it could be lived collectively. As a group or a team or a unit. It really started back when I was at Weber State. I've told this story a lot when I give keynotes, but I was at a coaching clinic, little private coaching clinic. We were at Weber State, so kind of a low major, mid major. Had a young guard there who could be pretty good, that we thought ended up being a phenomenal Hall of Fame player, Damian Lillard, and. But I was at this clinic, and a guy got up to speak. He didn't coach that year, and he went around and watched the best of the best teams, the best businesses all year. And he just said this powerful statement. He said, the people who win are either just better than everybody else or different than everybody else. So the light bulb went off, right? And I'm like, okay, at Weber, we're not better than everybody else. We don't have as much money or talent or resources or size, so we got to be different. But when you work on your different for so long, what I actually found and what I believe, and I have a faith, but like, I really think we all have a better within us. Because like, one of my biggest development philosophies, whether you're a player, a coach, if you want to go from good to great or great to elite, like I was talking about earlier, you have to become great at what you're good at. We have to improve weaknesses. I get it. But like if my one of my skill sets, if it's an F and I work on it nonstop, the greatest level I might ever get it to is a C. And that's just, that's average. I went from failing to average. But if I'm a C or a B with a skill set and I maximize that, I could go to an A. I could be excellent at it. So we define better as your greatest God given gifts, strengths, or abilities, those things that you have in you that are better than everyone else when your back's against the wall, those things that you're pretty good at that you could turn into a great skill. So that's our better. We all want to maximize our better, find our great gifts, find our greatest strengths, and maximize them, not only for ourselves, but for others. And that's why it's more than a message and it's a mission, because we want to impact others. And then different, you're going to love this because of what you do every day. Different is defined by our mentality and our character. Like, what type of mindset do you have? What type of character do you have? And then all these kids say, like, oh, I got a great mentality. Oh, I got great character. Or even some CEOs do that I've worked with. You know what? You don't tell me that you have a great mentality, or you don't tell me that you have great character. You display whether you have those by two things. And see, now you got me on when I'm all in coach mode, keynote speaker mode now. Display those by two things: your behaviors and your responses. How you behave on a day-to-day basis, how you behave when things are good or when things are bad, or when things go your way or don't go your way, and then how you respond. Again, taking punches, or how you respond, you don't get what you want. So be better, be different, not just a message, but a mission. Better is your greatest gifts, strengths, or abilities that will put you over the hump, that'll get you over the top. And then different, like I said, is your mentality and your character.
I could not agree more. And I love that you use the word response, because that's something that I try to work all my teams with, especially in basketball, is we can either react or we can respond. And react, in my definition, is a weakness. So like if we're playing basketball and you foul me hard and I just react, I'm going to foul you back. So now all of a sudden, you get a foul, I get a foul, maybe we both get technicals, and that's not good for either team. But if you respond, it requires you to take a couple seconds and say, okay, what's the best way for me to respond? I love that. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. And this was not even in my notes, but you got me fired up here too. I do quite a bit of work also with high schools and some middle schools. And I have a keynote that I've developed over the last few years. And the title of it is "You Have Greatness Within You." And I believe that every single person in any audience I'm in, whether it's an audience of 50 or an audience of 1,000, I 100% believe that everybody has at least one thing that they can be great in. Obviously, you can't be great at everything. You can't be Michael Phelps, Serena Williams, Taylor Swift, Albert Einstein all in one. But I believe every single person has the ability to be great in at least one thing. The unknown is, at what point in your life do you identify that one thing? And then the second part to that is, are you willing to put in the work required to be great? Because I think you'll agree with this. Nobody starts off great. And I love how you said become great at what you are good at. And you have to be bad at something before you can be average at something, before you can be good at it, before you can be great, elite, whatever the terminology you use. But I wanted to get your perspective on what you think about that concept, especially because you touched on mediocrity before.
100% agree. And honestly, it's like we should start your podcast right now and go an hour on this topic, or we're going to do version 2, or me and you are going to come up and partner with something to impact these kids and athletes together. Because I think what you said, greatness is being inside of everybody, it's missing so much now. And again, I overcame a ton of stuff growing up, but it's because I had other people see greatness in me and they called it out and they spoke. One of our big, it's a key to our game plan for Be Better, Be Different, but one of our big keys is speaking life. Not to go too spiritual here, I have a mentor who's the teaching pastor of one of the biggest churches in Arizona. He gave a great message once. And again, not putting religion on anybody, or anything like that. Like, I'm as screwed up and as broken as any of them. But it was, I always thought like chasing greatness was bad, or trying to find greatness in myself or others was just selfish and, self-promoting. And he gave this great message. It was called The Goat and the Lamb, like the greatest of all time. And how he opened up the message was for sports fans. He compared Tom Brady to Joe Montana, Michael Jordan to LeBron James, the Beatles to Michael Jackson. Like, who is the greatest? And he said something so powerful. He's like, if you believe God is great, we're created in the image of God. Like, well, then we're created to be great as well. And I just remember this, and it's so true for anyone listening to this podcast. And we need people to speak life to us, Chris. Like, we're mental performance coaches and life coaches and trainers, and like, we still struggle with this crap. But he said, being great isn't selfish. Being great isn't bad. Being great is God, because he designed you that way. And I think I talk about this quite a bit, especially with like the younger generation. Back like when we were growing up, and I'm not too old, like I said, I'm going to turn 43 in November. But back in the day, if you did something really good, or that you started to find that great skill that you maybe have within you, or that gift that you have, that you could carry on the rest of your life, people used to like pat you on the back and be like, let's go. Take it and run with it. You're going to go to college. You're going to be a good player. You're going to be a good parent someday. Now, though, it seems like instead of our world patting you on the back, they stick a target on your back. And they're like, shoot that person down. I want to tear his greatness down because I don't have that gift. Or no one has called me out for my gift, so I want to be a hater on that individual. And like I said, man, we could go an hour on this topic, because each person does have greatness in them. We all do have specific skill sets, strengths that we could develop. Like you said, you got to put in the work. We could develop to maximize. But one, we have to work to identify them ourselves. But we also, here's the key, and I talk to a lot of teams and coaches about this at the college level. You have to allow someone else to help you identify them. Like, I'm a 6'3" guy who could shoot the heck out of the ball as a player. I'm not going to be LeBron James. If you think I'm going to dribble the ball down and dunk and get a triple, no, someone has to help me identify my strengths and be able to tell me like, hey, no, that's not your strength. Let's stay over here and maximize this. So when you talk about that stuff, I think it's so important for anybody who wants to not only maximize whatever they're doing in work or sports, but maximize their life, to tap into their better, to tap into their greatness.
I think we probably could talk for about 5 hours on that. But one of the things you said, going back to what you shared before about the pastor and speaking life, and I think you mentioned before about maybe using different terminologies. So I think that's something that I've found to be invaluable for me. Is I try to be a student of other speakers, coaches. I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and conceptually, you and I might say, or might try to say the same exact thing, meaning we try to get this objective. But you might use 4 different words that I've not used, and I hear it, and I'm like, wow, that resonates with me. And then I might repeat that to 5 other people, and they're like, what is this dude talking about? But I think the best part about whether it's speaking life into others, we have a phrase that we use all the time: we rise by lifting others up. Whether it's religious, whether it's, family, doesn't matter what your words are, but the value in trying to help others, and whether that's a family member, a mentor, a coach, a boss, if you being a former college coach yourself, as I was, you had other coaches that worked with you, you had a head coach, you had an athletic director. There were all different ways where different people could pour into you. But I think, to your point about that target on the back, it pains me in some ways, because it reminds me of a book by Matthew Kelly. Have you ever read anything by Matthew Kelly?
I have not.
He writes some fables. He's similar to John Gordon. I'm going to butcher the quote for a second, but he has a quote that he shares, and the simplicity is, other people want you to be successful. up to the level of their success. But
Ooh,
once
yes.
they get past, or once you get past them, they become jealous. They become, all these different things. And I use that in high schools, and I have a big printout, and I actually will ask somebody to read it. And you see the teachers and you see kids kind of nodding their head. And I think what I don't understand is why we have this, I guess, message out there now where it's, if Phil's successful, that means that Chris can't be successful. And that's so far from the truth. It's Phil can be as successful as he can be. Chris can be as successful as he can be. Jennifer can be. But I don't understand why that person now has that target on their back, as opposed to, how can I help him succeed? How can I help? Now, again, if you have the same business one street over, obviously you're not going to go into your competing business and say, okay, here's our blueprints, do it. But taking that specific, scenario out, which that's probably like less than 1%, why can't you help others? Because the reality is, everybody else that's been successful has had at least one, if not multiple people help them to get where they are.
I don't want to sound like a know-it-all on this, and I don't have all the answers, but you posed a question there, kind of just open-ended, not necessarily directed towards me, but it's like, why can't people help someone else? Or why, when it gets to that level of someone else being successful, it makes them a little uncomfortable or jealous or envious, right? Here's what my mentors have helped me with, and my coaches, and still my age getting mentored and coached. Like I think it's so important. The Spurs brought me out a couple years ago. I got to sit down with Greg Popovich for like 30 minutes, not interviewing, just like getting to talk to him, right? And I asked, him, I said, everyone gives you all this credit for how you changing your approach as a coach, because he was so hard nosed, but maybe he not let up a little bit at the end, but kind of changed his approach. But his guys always love him, and he still got on him harder than any coach. And he just said, Phil, I started to develop and grow more empathy. Empathy is the game-changing word for me. And read a book about The Genius of Jesus by Erwin McNamara. He talks about empathy in that, like, all geniuses have a level of empathy. But Chris, here's what I'm going to say, brother. Like, what my mentors taught me, which gave me more empathy, or what my coaches or people have challenged me with, even the last few years, that allowed me not to hate on other people's success, is a strategy, or even just something every individual could be so intentional about, but they're missing today. Okay. It's having three types of people in your life intentionally. One, someone above you to coach you, lead you. My most important thing, Dame talks about it all the time, Damian Lillard, hold you accountable and challenge you. Do you have someone like that in your life, or are you allowing someone to do that in your life? Someone above you. Then you need someone around you. Who is your peer that you could connect with and be honest with, and a similar age or similar job or similar industry, and you could share ideas and connect and collaborate, and you're just kind of peers. You're more on the same level. You need that person in your life. And then the one, and again, going back to the pastor who's mentored me, he talked about this. The most important one is actually the person below you, the one you're helping, the one you're mentoring, the one you're pouring into. Now, if you're talking to a junior high kid, this would be extremely hard to do, because you're like, hey, you got to go help a second or third grader. Well, just be nice to them then. Just be a good kid on the playground then. But if you have someone above you, around you, and then someone below you, you're going to have a different level of humility, of awareness, of empathy, because you're not just being formed by the world and instant gratification, speed, everything that social media and our world is preaching to us. Now we're intentional about those relationships. And I think what it really, really does, and where it's helped me, and I'm still working on it, but it allows me to see others through a different lens. And that's what I needed so dang bad, Chris.
That is so awesome. I want to follow up with something that a friend of mine shared, and I'm pretty sure you've heard this, because again, speaks similar ideas and concepts, but say it differently. I think someone who I look up to and has helped me and mentored me along the ways, he said, Chris, people in your life typically fall into three categories: people that inspire you, encourage you, positively challenge you. That's one of them. The second category is people that keep you where you are in your comfort zone. We'll try it next week. Oh, maybe next month. Or the third category is those people that bring you down, bring doubt in your life. Phil, you're probably not going to get a chance to work with NBA guys. It's tough. Why don't you just stay in the high school? And not that that's in any way similar to what you said. What you said was awesome. I'm definitely going to steal that, borrow that, use that. But I think they're similar because it comes back to the idea of, and I always say it's a two-way street, right? What type of those three categories do you have most people in your life? Are they keeping you in your comfort zone? Are they maybe bringing you down, doubt, fear? Like, what if you fail? You're probably not going to be able to. Or are they saying, hey, you know what, Phil, like, give it a shot. You've been in the college game. You obviously know what you're doing. I think you definitely could correlate it to the pro level with some of those guys. And it doesn't mean you go in through an exercise. And people ask me all the time, like, hey, coach, do you put people in your categories all the time? I said, no, I'm not going to be like, hold on a sec, Phil, you're actually category 2, so I can't hang out with you until I, spend some time with the category 1 people. But it comes down to the idea that if you're looking to not be mediocre, not be average, you have to take the temperature around you sometimes. And sometimes you have to make some of those tough decisions. And it doesn't mean that you unfriend people in real life, right? On social media, you can mute or unfollow. I'm not saying you say, all right, Phil's no longer a friend, I'm deleting him from my phone or I'm blocking him. But it's sometimes you have to make a tough decision and do a little bit more. And to go back to your point, I want to bring this full circle, is to be better, you have to be different. And I think being different now sometimes is looked at as a bad thing or not cool. But I think all the most successful people that we look up to in all walks of life, we probably could put together a list of 50 that, all different areas. I don't think we would go through that list and say, oh, like that person was absolutely amazing. He or she was the best of the best. Wow, they were not different at all. They were just like everybody else. I think we would say more often than not, like they were so different in so many ways.
Yeah, I think, and I personally don't care anymore. I'm trying to get way better about that, but the world glorifies way too many bad kinds of different, in my opinion. Like how many Instagram followers you have, what color your hair and all this other stuff is. Where, like you said, if you're really trying to be better or be different, like some people aren't going to like it. But there is, and again, going back to defining things, there is a good kind of different. There is a kind of different that separates. And like you said, though, too many people fear that. They don't want to be uncomfortable. They might get judged. Or here's the other side. You might get unfriend instead of you being the one unfriending they sometimes because of your level of success or you having high standards, it's not for some other people and that they unfriend you because of it. And you have to be okay with that.
That's tough. Want to change lanes for a second. I'm actually very intrigued for your answer. I know that you're familiar with the Jim Rohn quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If I could grant you dinner tonight with any 5 people, dead or alive, that you could level up with and share a meal with, who would you pick for your 5?
I love this question because I have a couple buddies in text. Like we always do this. Who would you hang out with? Who would you pick? You're going to think I'm nuts. I want to know if this is the most different answer you've ever got because I know I'm not the only one you've asked this to. I'm not picking people to necessarily level up with. I want to pick people who are like cool. Like it would be a fun, rocking, unbelievable dinner. Okay. Just for political correctness, let's take Jesus aside. Okay. Like everyone says that, but like that would be number one, of course. But here's who I'm going with. And I was a huge WWF, now WWE fan growing up. So the Ultimate Warrior, without a doubt, is sitting there. Stone Cold Steve Austin, without a doubt, is sitting there. Michael Jordan, the GOAT, is sitting there. Tom Brady is sitting there. The last one, I don't know who it would be, but I'm bringing a friend, whatever friend hasn't pissed me off at that time, just so he could experience it and we could like have fun and talk about it after that. You want Chris, you want to be that guy. But like 2 wrestlers, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, probably a friend, but if not, and I've met this guy. It's crazy. His like name is even in my phone. Steve Nash, my all-time favorite player growing up. He's brilliant. I mean, Chris, he's so bright. Or it would be Obama, like a leader, a president. But Obama is also like a cool freaking dude. Like imagine him and Stone Cold sitting at the table. So nothing against your question about leveling up, but bro, we could hear podcasts. I've gone to Tony Robbins conference. I'll go to church. I'll listen on stuff. I could level up with books. That dinner, if I get to pick, bro, we're like fun. Like let's go. Let's see what this turns into. And maybe let's have some adult beverages as well and take it to the top.
Full and fair disclosure, I think the adult beverages for some of those people might need to be limited because of just what they would do. But I know we got to wrap up in a second, but I got to share a 30-second story that you'll appreciate. So I was a wacko wrestling fan growing up, and I was a big Hulk Hogan fan. But when the Ultimate Warrior came on the scene, I was just fascinated with this guy, and he was notoriously nuts. I've read some stuff, I've seen some stuff. They'd say like he would be behind the camera doing his, I don't know what you want to call him, and people that worked with him were like, this guy's nuts. But he would go in the ring, and he was just so ripped. So growing up, I would paint my brother's face as the Ultimate Warrior, and that was a big thing. And my mom and my dad came. We had dinner one night all as a family, and my mom like had a look on her face, and I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Your brother was at swimming class today, and they go around the room and like, what's your name?" And everyone was like Jennifer or Michael, and they came to my brother and like, "What's your name?" And he just looked at her real serious, and he was like, "I'm the Ultimate Warrior." And my parents were just like, "What are you doing? What are you doing to your little brothers?"
Chris, I was painting my face. My guy Oliver Winterbone, top sports executive. I mean, one of the best in the country. We send each other, I bet, Ultimate Warrior video clips every week. Seriously though, and I know hopefully no one's turned off the podcast. There is something cool I think people should see. Look up. It's like on Instagram or something, but like Ultimate Warrior training like some high school kids, like weightlifting. You will see dude's wacko. But again, wacko, he's one of the best ever to do it. A different kind of different for sure. So yeah, I love it.
That is awesome. So, want to give you an opportunity for our listeners that would love to find out more about you or connect with you. Obviously, you mentioned some keynote and working with teams and corporations. Want to give you an opportunity if you could just share the best way for them to connect with you as well as your social media so they could follow you there as well.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. We have a website, really simple, bebetterbedifferent.com. So that could give you kind of all the high performance mindset, speaking type stuff. And then Instagram and Twitter at Phil Beckner, my name. So really, really simple at Phil Beckner. Anyone who wants to reach out, email us, resources, whatever we could do, same thing, trying to impact people and impact performance would be happy to connect with anyone.
I appreciate you sharing those. And last question we have for you is the same question we ask each guest, is if you have some parting words you'd like to leave with us today.
Yeah, I think that's really good because there was one point I wanted to make, and then we kept getting passionate and going off on some different topics. But a guy who's become a good friend of mine now, I heard him speak. He's in Texas. He runs a great character development program for all the high schools and different athletic organizations in Texas. His name's Stephen Mackey. He spoke and he said a phrase, and I use it as my mantra all of 2024 and 2025. It's been super powerful. He was on stage. I don't remember anything else he said because it was so dang good, but he just said, "You will never lose when you help someone else win." You will never lose when you help someone else win. So for me, for you, for anyone listening who's walking into a room and maybe we have fear, doubt, worry, or insecurity jumping in, or maybe our ego gets in the way, or we're wondering why we do stuff, man, if we could just help other people win, we're designed for it, where it fuels us, we're passionate about it. Like ultimately, we will never lose. Whether it's a team, an individual, like if you help someone else win, you will never lose. And I think it's so dang important. So those would be definitely my parting words after, the kind of topic we spoke about today.
That is phenomenal. And as I said before, one of our key mottos is we rise by lifting others up. So I think that is a fantastic way to end today's episode. Want to thank you, Phil, for taking the time, and want to again plug myself to be that guest for dinner when you bring those people together. Only Ultimate Warrior is dead, so maybe I'll just substitute myself for him. But again, all jokes aside, appreciate you, and I hope that you and I can connect again soon.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to episode number 638. Phil touched upon some very powerful things. One thing he said that really stood out to me was that during a boxing match, the winning boxer takes an average of over 200 punches. Think about that for a minute. As we are beginning a new year, my guess is that if you are listening to this podcast, you are someone that wants to be, do, and accomplish more. I would also guess that just like a boxer, you have taken your fair share of punches throughout your life. As you go out and crush your day today, I challenge you to keep going. The next time you get knocked down or you feel like you have been punched, make sure you get back up and you punch back. Life is challenging, but so are you. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Thank you for listening to the No Quit Living podcast and for being a part of Team No Quit. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to our show and leave us a review. Keep going, keep growing, never quit. And to quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.